Okay, let's just start. I think we're live now. Okay, hi, let's get started. Good evening, everyone. My name's Aisha Siddiqui, and I'm an Education USA advisor at the Lahore office. Today, thank you for joining us for what I believe will be a very interesting session. We have very interesting alumni with us who are doing great work, and they will be speaking about their experience in the United States and how that's helping them in their lives, in their careers, and their work. So you get firsthand accounts from someone who did their undergrad and someone who did their graduate studies there. And just, oh, there is a bit of an echo, sorry. Wonder where that, okay, that's done. So stay put for the hour. We should be done by then. At the end, we have Q&As. So if you have any questions, if you're on Zoom with us, just send them to us there. If you're on Facebook Live, feel free to write those questions in the chat box and we'll try to get to all of them, but we might not be able to. You can always write to us and the panelists later. Okay, let me just introduce them. First of all, we have Farrukh Shafiq with us. So Farrukh went to Cornell. He did his undergraduate there, and he was very active on campus. At one point, I think he was one of the top 10 debaters in the US and the only international student on that list. So that's pretty cool, and I'm sure he'll talk about that with you. He is also the founder of Tots,ville, which is a new early education system slash kindergarten, and it started off in 2020, and he's already working towards a custom-built American school campus. So that's very exciting. Thank you for being here with us, Farrukh.
You're welcome, Aisha.
Okay, and secondly, we have Saad Taman. He is actually doing really cool work at the Strategic Reforms and Implementation Unit in the Prime Minister's office. So that's pretty cool since the new government started in 2018. Saad went to Vanderbilt. He did his master's in economic development from there. And after coming back, he's worked in various sectors, private and public. He's worked as a management consultant for McKinsey. He's also been a consultant for the UN and the World Bank, I believe. So he will speak about his career trajectory to answer any graduate questions you may have. And we're very excited to have you on board too, Saad. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to take up much more of your time. Just give me 2 minutes and I will tell you a bit about Education USA, who we are, what we do, and then I will hand it over to the panelists. Okay, so Education USA, what is it? We are basically a network of advising centers scattered across the globe, and we are under the umbrella of the United States Department of State. We are housed within the USCFP in Pakistan, so that's where you'll find us. We have physical offices in Lahore, Islamabad, Karachi, but honestly, wherever you are in Pakistan, you're just a phone call or email away. We will be happy to work with you. We do work with students from all across the country. And we are the official source of anything to do with higher education in the United States. So we'll work with you and we will help you find your best fit university, put your best foot forward for applications, and figure out what exactly it is that you can do. So these are some of our services that you see. And let me just reiterate that 99% of them are completely free of cost. And these include free sessions. These were in-house sessions before the pandemic, and now most of them have moved to the virtual space. We have free workshops on the GRE, SAT, TOEFL, and in fact, in these months up until August, we're having a bunch of these every week. So please do follow our USCFP and Education USA Pakistan accounts, and you will find some great resources there for preparation, etc. We have an access library, resource library in Lahore, Islamabad, Karachi. Again, that's on a bit of a limited access basis right now because of the pandemic, as are the mock tests. But our key service is the one-on-one advising. So all you do is you sign up on our website for advising, completely free, and you will be assigned an advisor. It could be me, it could be anyone else. It depends on your location and your last name. But our team will be happy to work with you on a one-on-one basis, answer all your questions, and help you get started. These are the 5 steps to US education, beginning with researching your options and then all the way to, preparing for your departure. It doesn't matter where you are on this horizontal trajectory. You can just send us an email. We'll be happy to work with you. Often the first part is the hardest because there are more than 4,000 institutions to choose from. So it's the most overwhelming one. And that's where we really concentrate on, shortlisting your universities, applying. But anywhere you are, just shoot us an email. So this is our website to sign up for the free advising services, educationusa.pk. And any questions you have, depending on which office is closest to you, just feel free to email us. All right, I am going to stop sharing. Okay, and Farrukh, why don't you take the stage?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And firstly, Aisha, thank you for the amazing work that you are doing. Helping all these students out there find out more information and get the help they need to get to universities in the US. I just want to talk a little about my educational journey, and then I'll talk a little about my work journey, and then I'll talk about how my experience in the US was and how it helped me in my work journey. So I basically was raised in the American system from day one. While I was in Lahore, I used to go to the Lahore American School. I graduated from there in 2003, a long time ago. And then after graduating from LAS, I went to Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. And at Cornell, I did my undergraduate in applied economics and management, which is basically Cornell's undergraduate business program. But Cornell is a liberal college, and what that basically means, while pursuing broaden business, there were so many other fields which I actively took courses. I did ancient history, I did Islam, I studied political science, I studied theater, I studied a variety, world literature, a variety of different fields were opened up to me. So it wasn't like I was just going on one track. And what that really, it gives you an entire world out there, past, present, and future, right? And so that's what I did over there. Apart from that, I was extremely active in the extracurricular side of my college. So one of the things American University so well is that apart from their academic programs, their extracurricular programs are just top notch, right? So at Cornell, I was in parliamentary debate, and as a debater, ranked in the top 10 debaters. And I was the only international student on that list during my time over there. I did Model United Nations. I did this organization called ICE, which was the world's largest student organization, and it brings together all over the world together on one platform. I was a part of Pakistan Students Association, right? So you get a wide variety of experiences while living in the US. And one of the most brilliant things about studying in the US is that you get exposure to so many different world cultures. So for example, my parliamentary debater, my partner in parliament from Israel, right? And we used to go on longs to different in the US. So parliamentary debates would happen at various colleges. We would get into the most heated discussions while traveling on those American roads. there was a respect for one another. There was an understanding that we are both trying to learn from each other, right? So that brilliant. You come into contact with people from so many different perspectives, from so many different backgrounds, and you start understanding the world a little more. And I think the US is truly unique in that no other country in the world can bring together such a multicultural, such an international group of people together, and really be a crossroad of ideas, for all these ideas to be exchanged. Isaac too. So Isaac was about bringing together. While I was there, I was the head of their events committee, and we did a global village with the Ithaca mayor, and that was just so much fun. We got community involved. We had so many nationalities represented, so it gave you a whole multicultural view out there, right? So that's what I did at Cornell. And after graduating from Cornell, I graduated 2000. For the next 10 years, I was in a variety of business, family-owned business in the construction, real estate, and paints industry, both in Lahore and in Dubai. And right around the time the pandemic started, I decided, I'm going to pursue my passion. Pandemic was a time where all of us were on what we want out of life. So I decided that early childhood education was always a passion of mine. And I started a preschool / kindergarten here in Lahore. I started it out of my basement as a Zoom class of just 8 students. Today, we are a school of 70 students, 20 members of staff, and we are growing. We are now working on a 2-year plan to build a custom-built, campus here in Lahore, an American system. That's the I grew up in. That's the system I understand. So it's going to be playgroup to grade 12, and we've got our goal is that it's up in 2 years' time. So now, very quickly, having given you a background of of me and my time and experiences, and they're going to tell you a little about things which I learned while studying in the US. Every culture has certain traits and characteristics which are very which are deeply ingrained in a large percentage of the population. So not every individual in the world is different, but as a group you can make certain generalizations about each group. Like, for example, the Germans are supposed to be extremely punctual. That they're always on time. The Japanese, for example, you see the Japanese coming together and cleaning up stadiums after they leave, because the sense of community, the sense of you take care of each other, that grain in the Japanese. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of pointers about the American culture learned while living there. Number one, I was part of the program, right? And so as part of that, we used to get the head multinationals coming all the time, professionals coming, and we got to interact with so many of them. And one thing I learned from them was no work is too small for you. Okay? This culture of being I'm the top guy, so I'm just going to sit on a chair and I'm just going to be the one who papers. That was very absent, right? So it was very much that as when I started my school, I used to put on the young children. I used to clean them. I used to carry their bags. I was standing at the gate when they came. Seen that as a parent. I taught no work was ever too small. It's part of what you do your job, and you feel a sense of honor in, right? The second thing I learned was passionate about do, right? So when at Cornell, I saw people exploring, so many different passions. I saw people who would dedicate their lives to studying lines, or people who would dedicate their becoming a ballerina dancer, or who would dedicate their lives to going out to outer space. There's just such a variety of passions, and it's really that exploring what you're passionate in life about. Is yourself, right? So you look at what you need to really focus on is your own self and see where was I last year and where am I today. So this is very good in the American system, that they don't really get you into this rat's race. Every individual is judged in terms of in terms of growth, not proficiency, right? And the two words is that when you look at proficiency, that is the skills you have today. Growth is what did you have and what do you have today. So that is what they really, they value. Oh, I think somebody's saying there's an internet glitch. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. There, you just got cut off for a few seconds in the middle, but I think the sound's back now.
Okay. Number 4, money is not the object. Happiness is, right? So I went from, and this is not about Pakistan, the bubble I grew up in. I went from a where I think a lot of people have, they were very status value driven, in the sense that it was, about all the status symbols that you possessed, right? And again, this is not a generalization about Pakistan, this is the generalization about the bubble I grew. Whereas in the US, I saw nobody cared, right? What they wanted was to be happy at the end of the day. They could be in whatever they wanted. I saw the heads of some of the biggest corporations in the world shopping at Kmart, or they were not the least bit bothered. It wasn't about that. It was just their own inner happiness. It did not matter what you wore, drove in. It didn't matter to them. And I was extremely impressed by that. I learned was in the American, a great emphasis is placed on not just, teachers don't just teach you what you need to know, they teach you how to learn. So there's a difference, right? So they teach you, for example, research is an integral component of the American system, and you see some of the best research in the world being produced by American universities, right? So it's the process of learning, and I implemented that over here as well. I did not have my background in the field of education. I was self-taught, but I knew how to get myself the knowledge and the skills I needed to get you how the process of learning happens. Another thing I learned was don't be afraid or embarrassed to ask for help, right? So we had so many group projects, and it was totally okay and legitimate to say, I don't know this, right? And everyone understood that different people possess different skills, abilities, knowledge, and and different things that they are good at. And the way things move forward is bring your best to the team. You don't need to know everything. You should not be afraid to ask for help, and that's how the wheels roll. And one of the things that I really learned, and which really I was impressed by, at least in Cornell, and I make these generalizations, at least in Cornell, right? There was this culture of building each other, right? So, for example, everyone understood that if everyone gets in an elevator and the elevator goes up, everyone is going to go up with it, right? So everyone used to support and build each other up and motivate each other, because everyone understood that if we do good as a community, everyone is going to rise along with it, right? It wasn't abhi the kite hasn't even taken to the sky and everyone is fighting to bring it down. So it was more of not tearing people down, but more of building them up, more of let's all work together. And as another part of that was people afraid to share their ideas, right? They were not too protective. They weren't scared that, to tell my idea to someone, he's going to steal it or she is going to steal it and they will do it before me, right? Because I understood that nobody can do it better than I can, but if I put my idea out there in the world, there will be all these other people who can help me bring that idea to life. So there was not this very, very competitive or very, closely guarded. Unless you put an idea out there, you're not really going to there. You can't, nobody's a one-man show or one-woman show. So those were some of the things while at Cornell, while helped me in my work. And the US is a good option. I think going to any country is a great option because you get to learn, you get to pick up on so many things. Take the best of your culture and take the best of another culture, and together you create so much synergy and you really go much further ahead. So with that, I'll give the thing back to you, Aisha. Thank you.
Thank you, Farrukh. I'd just like to add here that Farrukh is now being widely known as Mr. Fuki in the early education spheres in Lahore. And he's making waves because his style of education, his hands on approach, as he mentioned, is something that I think was the need of the hour. So we're very excited to see where Thoughtsville goes. Thanks for that, Farrukh. And Saad, we're just going to hand it over to you now.
Okay, thanks. Um, Before I begin, I think I definitely want to fully endorse what Farooq said. I think the basic essence of US education is all about inclusivity and sort of self-discovery. And it's literally up to you what you make out of it, right? You have the autonomy. So on that note, let me tell you a bit about myself. I grew up in Lahore, but I went to a British schooling system. I went to HSN and I did my O and A levels there. I did attend an American school in the start, but I would definitely say that I learned through the British system. Now, the difference, to add on to what Farooq said, is we have been through this prescriptive approach of teaching, of being taught, where you are prescribed at the onset of the year that this is what you're going to do, and this is how you'll do it. You will be assessed twice. If you fail, you start again. So look at the cycle. The learning cycle is a year. And whereas in the US education system, or in contemporary education, I won't even say US now, I think this model is being followed pretty much everywhere, especially in progressive institutes. The learning cycle is now small. So that is where the US education stands out. And my experience post A levels, I went to Canada. And trust me, I think my experience in the US changed my perception of education still, because Canada too was prescriptive. Even though I did a math degree at the University of Waterloo and I majored in something which was very statistics heavy, I was more of a science person, much boring than what Farooq is. I hardly participate. I didn't have time to do it. So be very clear on what you're going for. If you want to do self-discovery, if you want to do all these extracurricular activities, engage with the community, make sure that the program you're subscribing for and the commitment you're about to make, you're clear on the amount of time you want to allocate to education in school and out of school. Sorry, not in the classroom and out of the classroom is what I should say. So I'm going to talk about basically a few things. I think given that Farooq really explained the undergrad experience very well, my experience in the US is on grad school, grad school, and I went through the Fulbright route, right? So I completed my undergrad in 2009, came back to Pakistan because I graduated in the recession, and it was a tough patch because what I had studied and what I was trying to apply, there was no link. So it was up to me. And had I been through the US education system, or had I been through such a learning process, it would have been far better and easier for me to create that ecosystem around me where I could leverage on both my thinking process and what's out there to actually connect with what's needed on the ground and where my education can help me and how networks can help me. So my career started in microfinance basically, and I worked in financial inclusion. With that, I come from an agriculture background. My family's into it, so I like it, and I was very well. So I was connected with that also. So both the Pakistan experience with the financial inclusion sector, which was sort of addressing the bottom of the pyramid, and then the rural dynamics, and it pushed me to sort of think about what next. Now, Fulbright is an option, right? And I'm going to definitely market it for those who are viewing this. Is that if you're looking for a life-changing experience, you have to aim big. Don't aim small when it comes to education. Think large and aim for it. I was at a disadvantage. My undergrad was from a country outside Pakistan. But I was still eligible to apply for this program. I was given that I had been through it, given given that the Fulbright process mimics the application process or the admissions process of any education institution. When I was filling that application, it made me think about things which I frankly should be thinking about all the time, right? What exactly is my objective to study? Why do I want to do this? How do I want to do this? This is aside from the fact that what topic I want to study, right? And my experience sort of dictated or was pushed me towards the economics development side. And that's what I'm doing now. And I give credit to that time, that process where it made me start thinking that how do you do what you want to do, right? And I went to Vanderbilt. So as you know, that you get placed in different programs. Naturally, one aspires to go to these universities in the Boston area and on the west coast, right? But frankly, every institution over there has the same culture and spirit in it, right? I didn't even know much about Vanderbilt, but that university actually changed my life. So it's in the South. It's in Nashville, Tennessee. One would sort of connect with Nashville as a backward area where people from a different background would not be accepted. But all my misconceptions were cleared, given that it is by far the most friendly place in the US. I think the most laid back. It's like the Punjab of the US, right? You're laid back, you're relaxed, you don't really need to. I mean, they're happy all the time. So you see, these experiences, one has to be open to it, right? If had I resisted, I would have missed out on a life-changing experience. So the fact that you have to sort of make sure that you challenge yourself consistently is something that is inculcated in the education system. And this was something I think that's very specific to the US. I don't think that this is actually also present in the UK or probably Australia, or probably certain institutions in Europe which are following this particular model for education. But even in Pakistan, right? When you and I do critique it quite loudly. Institutions in Pakistan are still prescriptive, even though they followed the structure of the US education model. They're still very we'll give you homework. That's not how it's supposed to be, right? You create your own homework because you're made to think. And this entire so Farrukh mentioned more about the undergrad part. I'm going to talk about the grad schools. That is where, so if any economy has a growth engine, that's your grad school institutions. Undergrad is sort of the feeding pipeline, but the actual engine is in the grad school. That's where the research happens. That's where you sort of create those minds, whether it's business, whether it's economics, social sciences, any engineering, technology, all of that will at the end of the day lead you to a laboratory in an education institution, right? And we all hear about it at that university, this thing was developed, that this thing was invented. So please, when you look at grad school, don't personal development at a different level. It's about, that's where you're preparing yourself to sort of drive growth, right? In undergrad, you're preparing yourself to develop as a person. In grad school, you're preparing yourself to drive growth. That's why the MBA is a very popular program, especially with people in South Asia and the US, because when they graduate, they know their job is to make money. But that's a crude way of looking at it. Their job is basically to drive the economy. Now, but the facts, the overlap that still exists between undergrad and grad school, the diversity is not compromised. the classroom behavior is not compromised. It's exactly the same. So when you're applying for grad school, or if you're exploring options, you will most likely actually experience the same thing. When you engage with your class fellows or with your grad school mates, inside the class, outside the class. My roommate was from Indonesia. He's right now with the Planning Commission in Indonesia. He's managing their COVID response, right? So I got to know so much about Indonesia in the US, right? I went to a very small program. There were only 20 people in that program. And half of them, as expected, were from China, but the remaining were from developing countries, right? So you realize that once you're engaging with, everybody has a different experience. My experience was engaging with people from developing countries, underdeveloped countries in a very advanced economy, right? And that made me really question that how do you actually what needs to be done when you go back home, right? When a problem comes, because I now work with the government. Majority of the time, the topics that are discussed are development related. So you have that counterfactual in your mind that what's the end state, how is it supposed to look like, and this frankly is something that the US is very good. This education system is very good at. They make sure that by the time you graduate or while you're in the classroom, they inculcate or sort of incubate that image of the end state that this is what you should be looking at, right? So the form of education or the experience in the classroom is not that different between undergrad and grad school. But what is different is that you become professionals in grad school. Your relationship, even the teachers, right? Even the professors in grad school, they don't take you as students as such. They take you as colleagues. They take you as peers. Their job then becomes to train you as professionals. So grad school is purely, that's why we call it, that's why it's professional education in that sense. Now, the other thing I feel is that which in grad school becomes specific, right? So the business school, if I went to a business school, I went to the econ faculty, right? There again, I chose a boring and dull one, but my friends at the business school were having a baller of a time, at least from far away, because their building was right next to me. So they push you to be part of different communities. I actually instructed a course in the business school, so I was quite familiar with them, with their lifestyle, and they specialize. So the point I'm trying to make is these schools then actually end up specializing, right? They start creating that environment. So the business school has a very go-getter, on your toes, do this, do that, do 10 different kinds of things. Whereas in my college, there was this bigger book, you're going through it, you're trying to understand that, what this research is and whether this even makes sense, whether it's valid or not. Things that you wouldn't, probably question in other forms of education. So that's more on the grad school front. Apart from that, I think that when you're applying for grad school, don't look at, even when I did, I didn't look at it from just to go to school and then graduate and think about it again. You have to think long, right? Think long term. Think about 10 years. Think about 15 years, because this then becomes your stepping stone towards it. And it's about, you go to a school, you complete your degree, but then there are other resources also on campus. There are things that you can't even imagine. They've thought about it because for them, education is, these institutions are over 100 years old. They've evolved. They probably have a center for everything, right? So you can go, this is something that we actually are not taught in Pakistan on how to make use of what's available. We are a byproduct of a prescription, is how I look at it, right? And that's exactly not, if you want to break that, you go, the US education system is good. So I guess, that's pretty much an overview of my education side. After that, I came back, I applied for a job at McKinsey. I was the first associate of the Pakistan office. I was a little spoiled when I really didn't want to go to Karachi. So I ended up working in Islamabad and Lahore most of the time, and also in the MENA region. But I ended up leaving, and then I started doing my own advisory work. I did a bit for Gates Foundation, for the United Nations, for the World Bank, till this government started. And then I was here at the Prime Minister's office, where I think sort of lots of things converged. And, but the thing is that I can still tell you for a fact that my education played a pivotal role in helping me perform, right, and do things differently for the betterment, right? Here, regardless of where I was, whether I was in a government institution, whether I was in a serious management consulting firm, or whether I was doing advisory work on the side, right, as a contractor. So that's about it. Aisha, over to you.
Thank you, Saad. That was very insightful. And I just want to reiterate a few points that both of you mentioned. And amongst those was the diversity on US campuses and the flexibility they offer. Those are really unparalleled. I graduated from the University of Chicago in 2011, and those are the two things that have really stayed with me. And what both of you mentioned also was how an American education, more than anything, it really helps you think for yourself. It teaches you to think. And I think not just careers, like not just when we enter our professional lives, it also helps the way you shape your lives, the way you raise your families. It branches out into so many things. So that's something that both of you mentioned, and I completely agree with. Yes, Farrukh.
I'm just going to add something over there, and this ties in with both what you and Saad because they force you to think, right? In the sense, small example, one of the things I did extensive work in was Islam, right? So I'm there studying in Cornell, learning about Islam extensively by by American professors, right? But in a library, I kid you not, in a single library of Cornell, than you would probably find in maybe in all of Lahore, right? Because just amount that they spend on bringing knowledge from around the world in libraries, it's just much. And not just Islam, you look ancient philosophy, look at there's whatever it is, they make sure that they stock up, so it really gives you an exposure for you not to think.
Yeah. I agree, Farokh. And you might agree with this, but almost everyone I know minored in something or double majored or double minored because again, there are so many options for you to explore. So that's one great part about the undergraduate programs. So let's move on to the Q&As because there are quite a few. And some have come in just beforehand, before the webinar even started. A big one is, and this applies to both of you, a lot of our students want to know what steps should they be taking while they're enrolled in American institutions, like while they're students, what steps should they be taking to prepare for their professional lives moving forward?
Saad, you want to take it or should I take it first?
I think you take it. I'll have a very boring approach.
So a couple of things related to that. Okay. Number one, so the flexibility program allows to switch very easily, right? So for example, I started off with economic development. Okay. Now, after the first couple of classes, to my so bored. This is not me. This is not my personality. I can't study development. It doesn't make sense. So it's the course on my which has a W, and W basically means within the first 3 weeks, right? They allow you from a course which you don't do. So take a subjects in a variety, take a variety of subjects, and then very on catch what to do, because of course you can chart out your life, accordingly. So I think even while
Farrukh, you're
all
lagging a
these,
bit.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Even while this is where to be headed down, making all these courses, right? So for example, I started, right? I started 10 years later, after a decade, my careers, right? I could switch careers because all the other things which I had studied, I could take, those carried on with me in life, right? So make sure even while you are, you know where you're headed, find that out very early on, but continue looking at all these different things. Third thing, do know if you want to come back to Pakistan and settle here, or if you want to US. The approach will vary. If you want to come back to back to Pakistan, you different thing. Do you have a business here? Do you want to set up a business here? Do usme bhi make sure create a network of professional contacts. No, even if you come back to Pakistan, that network is going to be instrumental in your a business. When I was in Cornell, I had friends, very, very close friends from at least 20 to 30 nationalities, right? So if I ever want to take Tortsville to another country, I know people there, I can and take it there, right? So build on that international network, keep in touch with all those friends, meet with the International Students International Students Office. US has a students office. They will guide you about how you can basically, when you go there, you have one kind of visa status, right? And then if you want to work there first, you have to go to one of their fairs, their job student to convert visa.
Lagging just a bit. Yeah.
With them to convert your visa into allows work. Now, I college 10 years ago, but when I went there, they had that you had a offer. If you had a job offer, you could then stay in the US for 2 years and work on that offer, and that would then become green card or something. With the international student office, which you need to, and just about them, by the way. So when I was in the right, so the Kashmir 2005 mein tha, and they were so good. I was living in Lahore. Every member of they called you up, they make sure you're doing okay if you want counseling services. So they're just so loving and so warm towards you that it's an amazing experience because of that. So make sure you're connected to that office.
I agree. And I'd just like to add that almost every institution has career services offices. So touch base with those as soon as you get there if you want to get started early, because they start working with you on building your resume, teaching you how to write cover letters and all that. So that can begin in your first, second year. And it really preps you up for internships later on and ultimately jobs. Okay, Saad, if you don't want to add anything to that, we can move on to the another question, or do you want to add
I
something?
do want to add one thing.
Sure.
So I've been part of these recruitment cycles, right?
Mhm.
We did recruit for McKinsey. So I just want to add two things. Number one, Aisha also brushed on it, the Career Services Center, right? So one of the things, understand the employer, right? It's not, so if you understand yourself, get a resume template, right? Try to populate it. You will know exactly where you're lagging behind. I've seen resumes which are full of fluff, but they've done well, which means some thought has gone into it. This means this person is serious. I've seen resumes with the people with the same, from the same school, same GPA, same courses, same everything. One made the effort of writing a cover letter, the other didn't, right? So clearly you want to prefer the person who who wrote that cover letter, right? That because when you're going through resumes, you literally have 5 to 10 seconds to go through it. You make a decision right there on the spot. So in those 5 to 10 seconds, make sure you have everything there. So start working on your resume from the first day, right? The other thing, you mentioned about visas and, but the thing is you have to start networking and never deny an opportunity. Now, when I say start networking, it doesn't mean that you go out to offices and you start cold calling. Networking begins from home, right? It begins from your classroom. Your peers have access to, first, it's so competitive now that you really have to work toward, be clear in your mind what you want to do. You can't, that if you want to follow a particular profession, you have to engage with that community. The community, your engagement with the community starts from the classroom. There are there are peers who want to do exactly the same thing, right? And the pie is large, right? So it's not that you're going to eat from his share. You both can actually attempt to be part of that together, right? So create that synergy with your peers. And also in Pakistan, we're very specific about the community, right? So there's a banking community, but as a student, you're part of two communities. One is your profession that you want to be part of. This other part is your ethnicity, in a way, right? So there are communities out there, say, the Pakistan Association, or even associations, South Asian Association, who are out there to help because they have been through that, right? So learn from their experiences, learn from your alumni, you should just reach out to them, right? If you reach out to 10, maybe one might respond, but still one person does, and something that they might tell you might actually be far more valuable than what you're getting to learn at that point in time. That's all.
Thank you, Saad. Agreed. Just bouncing off of that, there's another question that's kind of related. So I personally always wanted to come back to Pakistan for so many reasons that we will not get into. But a lot of the people who go, a lot of the students, they don't want to. What would you say, like in retrospect now, looking at your journey, having come back to Pakistan, setting up your business and working at the Prime Minister's office for you, Saad, what would you say to students who are coming back? Do you think that there is opportunity here and like it is worthwhile to move back?
I would be very concise with that. I think once your objective there is complete, you should come back. You can come back. Some, when you're going to the US, maybe it's, your objectives are moving as time goes by, but friends and other peers who've been happy back in Pakistan are the ones who knew that they have achieved what they went for. Whether it's learning, whether it's finding a job there, whether it's getting some experience. I think if you're clear there, Pakistan is always here, right? It's not going to change. Nothing really changes unless you want it to change in Pakistan. So that's fact. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Farrukh, do you want to add something to this?
So the only thing I would add to that, I feel the answer to your question really depends on in the sense that I think all of us from privileged backgrounds, enabled
Farrukh, you're lagging again. Sorry. Maybe you can turn off your video for a minute and then
I will. Just a second.
To everyone who's viewing in, there's some major internet cable issue in Lahore right now, which is why this is happening.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think it's better.
So, all of us, it was very easy to back up and to come back, and we knew that our privilege enabled us to create opportunity. Otherwise, we might not have been able to, right? I think it really depends on that what are you coming back to? I think as Pakistanis and all of us, are in that need to ensure that we have opportunities here for people to come back to as well, to make it worthwhile. Otherwise, it's a great idea to spend a couple of years working in the US first, making those networks, creating those opportunities that as part of companies or as those networks you return, and that you have something solid to come back to. So it depends on coming back.
That makes sense. Thank you, Farrukh. And yeah, I agree with you. We all have our part to play with that education. We all need to work towards making opportunities. We don't have time for many other questions, but one more that we will take, which has been recurrent, is what you both think the most important part of the American application process is. Now, I know this will be different for you, Saad, because you applied through the Fulbright program, but I think you've already touched upon the statement of purpose. So if you could just speak about that, what you think that students should focus on the most when they're putting their best foot forward for universities. And yeah, we can start with Saad, then go to Farrukh.
So I think the application process has three parts, from what I understand. One's your what the grades that you've achieved. This also includes your SATs or GRE. Then you have your own statements that sort of you have this opportunity, this window to describe yourself and what you want to do. And then there is the validation part, which is the recommendations that come in. I think all three are extremely important, right? But some are in your control and some aren't. What you scored is already there, right? So be clear on what you're, so when you're looking at your transcript, some people think that you need like 15 A's to get into a top school. I think that's wrong, right? If I look at my transcript, I have always and always scored bad at Urdu. Always, right? So this is something I was very honest about. I'm bad at Urdu, right? It's not my skill set is more towards the math side, right? I was good at it. So when I'm trying to explain and when I'm trying to build that story in my objective statement and in my personal statement, I have to make sure that I highlight what my strengths are, right? I should not shy away from, admitting I don't have to write it on paper, but if my transcript says something, it says something, right? Doesn't matter. Then when you're making that story, people find it very difficult. And I've seen it so many times. I was part of this committee which reviewed the Fulbright applications in 2 rounds in 2016, 2017. And then this is feedback for people in Pakistan. Your study objective statement and your personal statement are two very different things. Your personal statement is about, who you are as a person. It doesn't have to be a sad story. It has to be positive, right? Because if I am the admissions office and I'm going through your personal statement, the question that I'm going to be asking myself is that, does this person fit in my community or not? Would this person enrich my community or not, right? And when I see the study objective statement, I'm not expecting that this person is going to say that I'm the most ambitious person in the world and that I'll win a Nobel Prize. It's pretty much about, why do I want to study, right? The response in actuality is more than getting a job, right? You have to justify what your passion is, right? What sort of a person you are in your personal statement, what drives you, what motivates you, some nice account about an experience in your life, right? And then connect that with your study objective statement. And you talk about that, since this is how I'm driven, this is where I want to take it. So I want to study for so and so reasons. Job comes at the end. Job's an output. It's an end product, right? I want to change the way I think. I want to change the way I want to meet new people, right? I can study in Pakistan, I can study abroad. What's the difference? If you put 2 pieces of paper, you write what you'll get in Pakistan, what you'll get in the US or any institution outside Pakistan, you say, I will meet people from different countries, right? For me, if as an admissions counselor or admissions person, that would be great for me to know that this person is, open to meet people. I would also want to know that if, there's a particular kind of sport you like. Schools in the US are very specific on the sports, on the area, right? So you have these Ivy Leagues. Ivy League is a football league. It's not education league, it's a football league. Similarly, you have the Southeastern Conference, right? So that's bigger. So if I applying for Vanderbilt again, I'm going to mention SEC, that I'm going there because I'm going to probably enjoy every game that Vanderbilt plays. So you have to do your research, you have to understand who you are as a person, communicate it properly, give good accounts of yourself, be positive, and then connect it to your study objectives, that when you're going to go there, how you're going to do it. The third part, which is the recommendations part, is the validation, right? So you get these people think that recommendations are just line upon line of flowery language to support this person, that he is the best person in the world. And I think that is wrong, right? Recommendations are validation. A recommendation can be 2 lines, recommendation can be 10 lines, right? But make sure the people who are recommending you know you well. People make this mistake of going to the school principal and saying, can you write my recommendation? That principal, if he first agrees, is just going to look at your file and say, oh, he's done this, he's very bright, nice guy, comes to school on time, hasn't had any disciplinary issues. I wish him all the best. I think he'll be a great fit. That's not a recommendation. That doesn't tell me anything about the person. A recommendation for me is somebody who knows that person. And when I read this personal statement and study objective statement, and I have the transcript, and I have this one person saying that this person is a person I have known for 10 years, right? I know that this person has this strength. He will be an asset for your institution. And that's how you should look at it, as an entire package. It's not a one-off thing. Everything is interrelated, and you have to be honest about it. And there's nothing to shy about. I mean, you should be very confident while you're putting it together. And now there's so many apps that could fix your grammar. I wish that was the case then for me, because I did have my writer's blocks.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Saad. Farrukh, do you have anything to add?
I'm just going to, already said, because he's right about that. I'm actually of Cornell's alumni network, and as part of that, I'm actually someone who all the prospective athletes with them, and then I have my review them, I have to take them, I have to listen to the questions they have about studying at Cornell, about life in the usual, and then based on that I have to send my what observe about them, tell me I have to send my admissions office, right? And I can tell you that there is no single they're looking for, right? And you might waste all his SATs or ACT or whatever, and they might not get in, but somebody else who's really at some sport might get. There's no one criteria that an admission officer is looking. Admissioners are given a very specific job, okay? And this is actually part told. They're told, make a interesting class that you can put together, right? You are thousands, right, around the world. We don't want a class that's exactly alike. So we don't want uniformity. We want, some class is so diverse and has so many different interests that we are spread all right? And that we have a variety of things, whether it's but our name is always out there, right? So you have to show them, not necessarily, can the best at everything, but that one thing is going to, for example, if I'm an administrator and I see this one person is a phenomenal musician, right? Then I ask my college, because I want on my resume is part of my community, right? Grades go a long way, but it has to be a complete package. And even if you don't have the best grades, but there which you really excel, they take it. Second thing, they want to see what do you add to their, but also what out from, and that I think is what Saad, that they want to see that you can tell them, hey, Cornell has the best laboratory or the best hotel school, right? And as my career, my goal is to become, to open my own hotels. No better place for me to than your school to see that how they want to see, and not just use the common app to send thousands of things in the world without actually knowing go to this particular college in the first place. So show them that you know their college, that there is something the college is offering which will benefit, that there is something you have which nobody else has good as you do, which they would want, and this forms a which goes forward. And on this, we're really told to advise our they don't want reference letters, recommendation letters. They don't want generic recommendation letters with, oh, he's or she is so good in this and that, right? They want specific stories. They want things which highlight as a person, so learn more about you. That, oh, she's so good, that some when an officer is looking at the recommendation letters, it's not going to stand out. There will be so many saying the same thing. One person those stories about you which highlight you, which they can say makes me understand this person better. So that's my thing. It's a variety of different criterias, and you need to show the complete package.
Absolutely. Thanks, Farrukh. So students, just remember, applications are judged holistically, and your statement of purpose or your personal statement should really not be an afterthought. Like, do put your focus and your time into it. I think we're out of time, so there are some questions we won't be able to take. I just want to quickly just take one, just like in a yes or no, or just if you guys could answer it very, very briefly, because I think this is important. A student has asked, can you share how Pakistanis or Muslims can handle racist incidents, and if you've ever faced any racism when you were on campus?
I think it's not. So don't think that it's just because you're Pakistani that you're experiencing this. This could happen to anyone, and I think everybody should be tolerant. So you don't be on the side where you are a cause of racism for anyone. So that's one thing for sure. Yeah. It happens at different levels. I think the best thing to do is to see through it, right, and not let it affect you. Whether they're judging you on being Muslim, on your belief system, or on your nationality, or the color of your skin, or what you're studying, we are humans, and we do have some. I mean, we think, right? So we do form opinions. Be forgiving. And in worst case scenarios and corner cases where you're exposed to violence, right? I think the education system in the US, they have so many services, right? Where you could just tap into it. They have a responsive security force, which just call them and then they're there. And in particular, feel confident, because the academia or the professors in the States, they are very receptive and they're very understanding. And actually, they're very diverse themselves. So they will understand, right? So they try their best that such sort of a culture doesn't exist, right? And so just be brave and look through it. That's the best approach that I've seen.
Advice. Thank you, Saad. Farrukh, do you want to add something?
I'm actually going to tell you both positive and the negative. Firstly, yes, we have to understand that racism is in any, right? So
Farrukh, I'm so sorry, you're lagging again. So just thought I'd let you know. Oh, yeah.
Is it better now?
Let's see. Go on, please. Let's see. I hope so.
So let me know if I point, huh? So it can happen anywhere, and we should not be naive about it. We should not think something that for example, but I could also be in Lahore and get into, find someone at the shopping mall or on the roads who's extreme or what. So this is something that I can encounter even in my own country. It's not just something I can outside, right? I have, so I'm in the US after 9/11. So I went like a year after 9/11 when things were extremely heated, right? So I went in 2003. So year, 2.5 years later. Taken. So this is something traveling once. I was taking flight from the US to Canada, and these four officers, they came with their gun and did questioning me that some woman has complained that you've been followed around, okay? And so some woman has complained that you've been following her around, and we need to do your whole background check. And I wasn't following anybody around anywhere. I mean, it's a they had their guns and everything, and they asked me basically. In those days, an I-9 card. It used to be a white card, in which you had to show a period when you were entering or exiting the. So on that, I had written my date of birth. Now, Pakistanis write their date of birth month, year. Americans write it month, day, year, right? So the first thing they started asking me was that, well, you have written your date of birth wrong, because I cut it off again. What's this? This is drilling me, whatever. For 10-15 minutes, and after they left once they knew that nothing wrong was going, and went around. So yes, incidents can, at least during that time, that I never see more loving people in the world as I saw at Cornell. Now Cornell is a very liberal part. It's one of the liberals in the US, which is generally quite a liberal place. On my campus, right, there used to be pro every single thousands of students come out against the invasion of Afghanistan.
Farrukh, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. It's like stopping in the middle. It's the overall issue, I think. Yeah, now we can hear you again.
So every single students would come out protest against any injustice found in anywhere in the world. The freedom to protest that I saw in the US, and I've traveled a lot in the world, I have never seen that where a national student could come out and protest against the Iraq war or against the campus on in the US. So there is something to definitely appreciate about. Any from any of my professors, from any of my, by the way, I've extremely vocal personality, and I'm extremely expressive. I could express what I do. I did not fear that they would rush because of that. Bad students can, but this got a lot of in the US that have to look.
Okay, Farooq, thank you. It lagged again at the end for a few seconds, but I think maybe it's just for me, and maybe other people heard the conclusion. Thank you so much. I think we're out of time, and I am so grateful that you both took out time to be here today. And I'm sure our students took a lot of beneficial information, tips, and advice. So they're gonna run with it, hopefully. We had a great time. Thank you for being here. And students, if you have any questions, feel free to write to us. And everyone, have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.